Oh, hello. Didn't see you there. Waiting for that stupid thing to go live. Oh, Nicholas. It is there are only 24 days left until I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do because school will be out and I will have to find ways to entertain my child all day long instead of just for a few hours after school each day. And the older she gets, the easier it gets. But Doc enjoys his free time, baby. I like sitting on my chair, eating my block of cheese. I enjoy my summer of Doc, and it gets taken away from me. And oh, too soon. Oh, too soon, Nicholas.
I would have thought she was at the age where now she's like wants to do her own thing anyways.
Nah, she still wants to do shit with me.
Wow.
Right? It's annoying.
Well,
It's annoying.
I always hear like older parents like cherish those days because in a few years it will be totally different. But what the
No.
fuck do I know?
In all seriousness, they do grow too fast, Nicholas. But I will say at the same time, I do enjoy the small periods of freedom I have during the week. But I bought her a pitchback so she could practice her lacrosse. She's yet to go out there by herself and use it. So fingers crossed. She's like, "Hey, I want to just go practice by myself for several hours a day. That would be nice. That would
Kid
be
knows
nice."
it's a sin. She knows better.
I'll tell you what, Nicholas, she's really, really good. She played goalie this past week, and I was really nervous, right? Because like lacrosse is a high scoring game, and I didn't want to have to, do any life lesson talks afterwards, in case things, went sour. But she did really, really well. She had a lot of saves, and
Nice.
I was very proud of her. But I'm glad that she's back on offense, so the team can start scoring goals again.
Yeah, I don't know. I goalie in any sport is just brutal. I whenever I played street hockey as a kid, like the few times I did always play goalie. I don't know why, but when I got like tested out to play goalie for soccer in high school, I was like, no fucking way, man. Like I ain't doing this shit. I For some reason that seems so much more ridiculous in my head than being a hockey goalie. I don't know why.
Well, because you don't have any pads, right? And the older you get, they can really boot that ball. Those little hamburger helper mitts.
Oh yeah, yeah. And
They don't do much.
I don't know. I just it never felt like something that I was going to do, and that experiment was tested out because I was baseball first, and that ended very quickly, which I was very grateful for. I found my spot, and it worked out. But yeah,
Yeah.
goalie just in any sport. No, thank you. The only thing that's crazier is being a catcher.
Ugh, right. And she volunteered to be goalie, so she was really looking forward to this. But she's got one game left. She had a hell of a season. She has travel soccer. She got her first legit tryouts coming out in 2 weeks as well for soccer.
Oh boy.
Travel soccer in the fall. So, anyways, that's enough about my child, Nicholas. We're now going to talk about some things that the people really care about. Not me, not you, but the books, Nicholas. The books. People are here for the books. So, with that said, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, TLDR Studios probably presents to you the greatest, and I mean the greatest podcasting team in the world. I am Tenacious Doc, and he is your friendly neighborhood comic book writer, Nick Friar. And together we are the TLDR Comic Book Club, baby. You see what I did there, Nicholas? You see what I did?
I saw a lot of what you did there. I was about to say, I think that was one of my favorite ones that you've ever done. It was
I
really, it
took a
was nice.
line that I usually give to myself and I
Mm-hmm.
gave it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It
You did.
flows. It feels nice. It rolls right off the tongue,
Yeah, it was well done. Well done, sir. That was one of your better ones across the board, not just because you did that. So I like that. Good stuff. Before we get rolling, we are doing another mainline episode. This is 3 in a row. I can't remember last time we did 3 in a row. I'm
know, right?
excited about that. But a reminder for everybody, if you're finding us over on YouTube right now, or maybe on Instagram Live, make sure you subscribe to one of our audio channels because that's the only place you're going to find our Friar Side chats, which are conversations with creators across the comic book industry. We're actually talking about one of the creators that we've had on multiple times on the show. We're talking about one of his big, most popular books today in light of a recent Eisner nomination that he got for a book that we talked about with him on the show that I may have or may not have given a floppy award to already. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to one of our audio channels. That's the only place you're going to find those Friar Side chats. And while you're there, make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of tenacious, Doc. All right, outside of that, well, where'd you get that casual batarang? What the fuck?
My buddy's got a 3D printer, so he's making me all
Oh,
sorts of cool shit. Yeah.
oh, okay. That's fucking awesome. All right. Nice. Just dropping on me in the middle of the fucking stream. I had no idea. Now, normally, we've been doing a lot less of catching up. Doesn't mean we're doing less catching up off the air. Just kind of, time. Want to make sure we're talking about the things that are new above all else. But we do try and prioritize when we have something substantial that we want to talk about in terms of catching up, making sure we give those mention. I have something real quick that I want to talk about, Joe. Redcoat, Volume 1. Now, this was a book that I believe you had dibs on originally, but then you kind of moved away from. I had also read the first teaser or whatever that was in the first Ghost Machine issue that we got that kind of highlighted all these titles from Ghost Machine. Doing some awesome stuff over there. I'm reading Hornsby and Halo. I've obviously talked about Rook Exodus on the show, and I cannot wait to get a second volume of that. But Redcoat was one that I was kind of like, I read it and I was like, I see the potential, but it just wasn't hitting me in the right way. And then I know for you it was a dibs book, but you kind of were like, it's fine, but I'm relinquishing dibs, correct?
Bingo
Yes.
bango.
So I felt I was like, okay, well, it's in collected form, and then I saw it's been one of the better selling books over
Mm.
the past year, and I was like, what did I miss, and what did Joe miss? And because similarly, like Berserker, obviously had a ton of popularity and all that kind of stuff, and then we both had mixed feelings. I went back, felt better about it. You not so much, understandable. So I went and read the first 7 issues of the entire volume available on Hoopla, and I'm still like, okay, like it's solid. But to be one of the 10 most popular series or whatever it was, which is great. I don't want to take it away from Ghost Machine. Like, this is awesome. If it's for you, whatever. But I read this and I'm still like, how is this more popular than Rook Exodus? It was a little bit surprising to me. It's got some fun components. I'm not saying people shouldn't check it out, but I think it's like, okay, okay enough for me to read all 7 issues. I don't know if I'll go and read the second volume of it necessarily, but I feel like you and I both had a pretty good read on it from the small amount that I'd read and however many issues that you read, where it was like, it's solid, but it's not a TLDR worthy book where we go and break it down on the show necessarily.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't. It's not that I disliked it. I think I got 4 issues in, right around there, and then it started to fall behind a little bit, and then I just, you know, didn't get back into it for whatever reason. So, it was good. It was good. I might do the same where I'll go back and maybe reread it again. And
Mhm,
I've been finding that there's just certain books, Nicholas, that I've got to read. I read and enjoy better in trade paperback form. I
mhm,
just do.
mhm.
And so this might be one of them. So I've been meaning to go back and give it another shot anyway. So this is a good reason to do that.
I would love to hear your thoughts when you go back and do that. And any of our listeners, if you've been reading Redcoat loyally or if you gave it a shot after the fact, I'm very curious if you feel like I'm being a little too hard on it. Again, solid, but not like it wasn't one where I'm like, how have I not been reading this the whole time? And we have series where Joe and I run into that kind of stuff. I mean, there's other books. I mean, a book I haven't talked about on the show, but I'm going to at some point. I've read quite a bit of it. Is like Monstrous. It's like once I started reading that, I was like, geez, this thing's so freaking good.
Mm,
There are books like that, but this just didn't feel like it was at that level for me. But
yeah.
anyways, you got one that you caught up on.
Yeah, so this was a Kickstarter that, I backed a while ago when when we had Gary Maloney on the program to talk When the Blood Is Dried. And so it was Wish Upon a Star, which is an anthology trade paperback series. And it's all um short comics based on fairy tales, right? And so I just did the digital copy only, and so I got around to reading it over the weekend, and there's There's a good number of stories in there. I think there's close to 20 stories in there. It's excellent. And there was a handful that I really loved that I want to highlight real quick, and then I want to plug their current campaign that's going on now. So Paul Carroll and Gary Maloney are the two that are running these Kickstarter campaigns. Paul and Gary are editing them. And then they've got a whole slew of other writers that are contributing. And so Paul wrote a story based on Peter Pan called Neverland, which was excellent. And the artist on that was Colin Cracker, and that was the first story that you get. It was a great way to kick things off. There was another story in there called Red Planet, and that was based on Little Red Riding Hood, and that was written and drawn by Gareth Lubby.
Ooh.
The story and the art on that also fantastic. Gary did the story to end the series, so it was a great bookend there, and it was called To Play the King, based on the story The King with the Donkey Ears. And this one was excellent. This story, like, and I'm not just saying it to pump Gary's tires, like, this was legit a really awesome story, and had a great ending. And Carlos Pedro's art on that was fantastic. But I think my favorite out of all of these was 1001 Nights Until the End of the World. This was written by Christian Angeles, with art by Marcus Jimenez. And I really want to emphasize two things. Like, the storytelling, this was A plus plus. But Marcus Jimenez's art was out of this world. It was one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. And you combine it with the great storytelling that happened. Uh, this to me was like the shining star of all the stories, in this book. So if you got a chance, look it up on Kickstarter. I don't know if I'll talk to Gary and see if there's other ways that people, if there's a shop where you can go and order these books from, or whatnot. But Nick, if you backed it, which I think you might
I
have,
did.
yeah, go through, give it a read when you can. Like, there's some really excellent stories in there. But currently on Kickstarter, they have a new campaign, same thing, an anthology series called A Bump in the Night, and it's a cryptid comic anthology. So these are all going to be short comics, short stories based on different cryptid, mythologies, Loch Ness monster, El Chupacabra, I'd imagine, things of that nature. And again, run by Paul Carroll and Gary Maloney. So they're a little shy of where they want to be right now. I went and I've backed it. I did a physical copy this time around. I'm kicking myself that I didn't do the physical copy for Wish Upon a Star. But go on Kickstarter, look up Bump in the Night, a cryptid comic anthology. I've tweeted it out. I'll tweet it out again at some point. And just take a look and consider backing it, and help these guys reach their goal, because there's some really great stories here. Nicholas, the importance of being in an anthology series,
Yeah,
right? Right.
100%.
You did this with Scott Snyder, and there was really great stories, a great way for new creators to break in to the industry, artists to break into the industry. We had Nawal on from Negative Space Comics. We were judges, and got to be part of that process as well. So this is really great thing that they do for other creators. So please consider checking that out.
Yeah, I'm glad you caught this because I know they've been doing a bunch of different stuff, and you can buy the previous Kickstarters and some of these campaigns from them as well. I had not seen that they were doing this cryptid one, so definitely something that I'm going to be backing as well. Awesome, yeah, great stuff, and I can't wait to read this. Yeah, when I saw your note that you wanted to talk about, I was like, God, I this is the only thing about Kickstarter is, like, sometimes these things can kind of slip past you, especially if you get whether or not you get digital or physical. But like, it's just digital can be a little bit easier, but you have to fill out the survey with your address. It's like, I forget. And it's don't realize.
Right. And with the digital copies, it's much easier to kind of fall by the wayside,
Yeah.
because, like, unless I have the physical copy in my hand, we all have way more emails in our inbox than we should. So that could really
Yeah.
slip through the cracks. So yeah, I've been meaning to read that. I'm glad I did. So excellent stuff.
My wife can't look at my phone when speaking of emails without getting anxiety because of how many
Oh,
unread emails I
Jesus.
supposedly have. Well,
Oh,
it's all BS, like emails and stuff that like I don't need to open this, and then I just leave it. So,
I delete it immediately. I
yeah,
delete that shit immediately.
work email 100%. My like personal, which is kind of a work email too. I do not.
Yeah.
But that's a conversation for another day. Let's move on to what's new this week. There are a ton of books out from Marvel and just across the board in general. We got quite a healthy mix to break down, Joe. But let's start with Marvel.
Okay, from Marvel Comics, Mr. Nicholas, we have The Ultimates, issue 12, Fantastic Four, issue 32, The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 4. Jack Black's a Spider-Man too, by the way. I caught that the other day. So, like,
Whoa,
we are kindred spirits. The
whoa!
Incredible Hulk, issue 25, Exceptional X-Men, issue 9. Uh, not
It's
Moon
like,
Fist. Well, what I do now?
no, go ahead. You didn't do anything. Read this title. I can't leave you hanging on Moonfist. God.
Moon Knight, Fist of Khonshu, issue 8.
So I've been loving that series. That's another series like I'm long overdue to talk about. Just Moon Knight in general by Jed McKay. But you brought up how like so you said Jack Black also does this, and I was like, oh, so that does that make Joe the doc? Does that make Joe the Jack Black of the DSG? Because then that would mean if you're the Jack Black of the DSG, I'm the Jessica Simpson of podcasting. I think is what it is, or DSG labeled by your other co-host. So Jessica Simpson and Jack Black. That's basically what our podcast is.
Oh,
You're
we'd
welcome,
put some
everybody.
we'd put some asses in the seats if
Yep.
I look like one. You sure as hell don't look like the other.
I mean, yeah, I don't. This is true.
Oh man. Iron Man issue 8, Daredevil, Unleash Hell, Red Band, issue 5, Doom Academy, issue 4, Thunderbolts, Doom Strike, issue 5, Weapon X-Men, issue 4, Star Wars Legacy of Vader, issue 4, Superior Avengers, issue 2, Star Wars The High Republic, Fear of the Jedi, issue 4, Spider-Man and Wolverine, issue 1, The Vision and Scarlet Witch, issue 1, Hulk and Doctor Strange, issue 1. And lastly, Nicholas, the book that we would like to discuss this week, The Thing, issue 1, written by friend of the show, Tony Fleeks, with art by Justin Mason.
Yeah, I mean, we got quite a few first issues out this week from Marvel and a couple titles that we might be interested in checking out. But honestly, when I see Tony writing one of these titles, like I got to give it a look. And when I saw The Thing, obviously Fantastic Four, we're getting that movie this year. You've talked about oh God, what was the
Life story.
series? Life Story. Thank you. You talked about that on the show. I honestly haven't read a lot of Fantastic Four stuff over the years. It's just not a team I'm overly interested in. I do like The Thing. I do like the Human Torch. But when I saw Tony, The Thing, I'm interested in this. And there is something that Tony does with The Thing that says so much about the character, and it perfectly illustrates what being a hero is all about. And it hit so well in the midst of all the action that we're getting with The Thing throughout the course of this issue. That really gives me a lot of confidence in how he's going to handle this series and how the series is going to be written throughout the gate. The art is outstanding. Justin Mason does a great job. And all this is, saying all this, I'm not even remotely alluding to what happens at the end of the issue, which is just, again, I love it when that happens, where we get a great issue entirely. And then the ending is just like, you thought that was good. Like, wait till the fucking second issue. Wait till the next issue.
Well, Tony did a couple of great things in this issue, right? So he starts the issue and ends the issue very well, right? And sort of brought those 2 points together very nicely. And then in the middle, he gives you, I think, a lot of what makes, the Fantastic Four such a great and such a long running series in that um for me, whenever I read Fantastic Four, I always have this sense of like Silver Age
Mm,
nostalgia for comics, right? Because there's that that's just how they always feel. Like you could take like Reed Richards out of the Fantastic Four and sort of plug him in any sort of storyline, and it can feel modern. But when the four of them together, I just always feel like it's a 50s and 60s kind of story. That just
mm.
they have that sort of old soul feel to them, right? And Tony captures that, right? Because he gives you, that feeling. Plus, there's always just this little levity that you always have with Fantastic Four comics, and especially The Thing. And I just thought he captured the tone, I think, of what makes the Fantastic Four such a great property. But does it in a way where it also feels modern at the same time, and especially with the thing is, generally, like, he's a fairly one-note character, but Chip did this really well, and Tony's doing it really well. It's giving the thing those layers, really tapping into like, he's a he's a giant freaking metaphor, right? He's giant rock on the outside, right? But inside there's still like it's like his protective shell, right? So Tony, I thought, did a great job with this issue. I love how he started. I loved how he finished it, and it's also got this great noir kind of feel to it as well. So this was an excellent first issue.
Yeah, really, really awesome stuff. Very excited reading the thing coming out of this week and going forward. So really happy for Tony because seeing him get more opportunities and getting bigger opportunities over at Marvel is great stuff. Moving over to DC, we got Detective Comics 1097, Nightwing issue 126, Batman Superman World's Finest issue 39, Wonder Woman issue 21, Titans issue 23, Batman and Robin Year 1 issue 7, The New Gods issue 6, Zatanna issue 4. That's another series I have to finish up. Zatanna Bringing Down the House, because that one is another one that got an Eisner nomination. Catwoman issue 76, DC and Sonic the Hedgehog issue 3, Batman Wayne Family Adventures issue 165, Superman Unlimited issue 1, and then we move to the Absolute Universe where we have Absolute Flash issue 3. What did you think, Joe?
Holy smokes. It's a Lemire week for me, baby. And man, like his take on Wally West, what happens in this particular issue, the way this issue starts and the way it ends is like it's perfection, right? And then sort of what you get in the middle is just like, no pun intended, but like it's a mile a minute, right? But Lemire does this better than anybody, I think. Just like you need to tap into like someone's inner struggles, right? He's gonna do it. And the shit that Wally goes through in this issue, because in the previous in the previous two issues, it's been figuratively and literally a bit of a whirlwind. Things have
Yeah.
just happening faster than like Wally can process. So this is the first issue where he's like had a chance to really fully sort of comprehend what the hell is going on, and at the end, right, when he sort of like he just kind of has that moment to just breathe for a second. You just like, holy smokes. So like I didn't know I needed a Lemire Flash, absolute, Flash story, but I'm sure as hell glad I got it.
Yeah. So in the end of the second issue, because it's obviously the third, we can talk about the end of the second issue. So there was a character who we alluded to that like a lot of we've seen a lot of different Absolute Universe DC characters so far, but I don't know if we've seen a greater change from anybody, at least in terms of appearance. And we all have seen Absolute Batman. We all know we had Scott on, we've talked about it, all these different things. I don't think we've seen a character look more different than Absolute Grodd. It is insane the change that they made there, and just we get more of him in this issue. I'm blown away by the decision that we got, like the decisions that were made with this character. It is amazing. In general, like I think you would agree with me on this. With all the Absolute titles, they've all had a lot of heart to them, in different ways though. And the element that Lemire is electing to hit on with Nick Robles, his artist, it feels like right now it is the most touching of them
Mm.
all. And I didn't necessarily expect that with with Absolute Flash, excuse me. So yeah, it's I'm talking a mile a minute right now, which is fitting. But yes, this third issue. This has been an awesome series, but this third one was definitely the one where I think for me was just like, okay, this series has leveled up a little bit.
Yeah, it was like sort of like that for me for like Absolute Batman, right? Like the first two issues, like, okay, okay. And then it was like issue three, go, oh, okay. All right, let's go. Let's
I feel
go.
I feel like all of these have well, let me rephrase that. I think that the first 3 titles have had that. I think Green Lantern has been on the same level for each of the first 2 issues, and it's been on a good level. I know you're not as big on Absolute Martian Manhunter, but I also think that's been on the same level the first 2 issues, like from where it started. I don't think I've seen another like absolute. So like those first three, and then Absolute Flash have all had a moment where they've leveled up. Each
Mm.
one of them at different times in the series, and I think Absolute Wonder Woman has. You could argue it's leveled up like pretty much every single issue. But even Absolute Superman, it's crazy. It's what's going on with DC with the Absolute Universe right now is amazing for Big Two comics, especially. It is just this is shit you should not be missing out on if you like reading comic books.
Yeah, between the Ultimate Universe and the Absolute Universe, you got two properties that are thriving because they're allowing their creators to not be confined
Yes.
to certain parameters, right? Heroes don't do that. Well, maybe in the Absolute Universe they do that. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. We haven't gotten there yet, but seriously, like they're allowing the creators to like really dive in like uninhibited. And that's what's made the Ultimate Universe with Marvel so great. That's what's made the Absolute Universe with DC so great. So
It's
yeah.
unquestionable. It's not even remotely debatable.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. What do we? Speaking of ultimate creative freedom, what do we got from Image this week?
We have Red Coat issue 12, Bug Wars issue 4. This issue was absolutely friggin' bananas, Nicholas. This was maybe the best issue of the series so far. Jason Aaron just absolutely crushing it. We have The Walking Dead Deluxe issue 113, Medieval Spawn issue 2, Deadly Tales of the Gunslinger Spawn, Nicholas, issue 6, Null Hunter issue 8, Young Blood Deluxe issue 2, Moonshine Bigfoot issue 2, The Curse of Shirley Johnson issue 1, and then there's two books you'd like to discuss. Why don't you lead us off there,
I
Nicholas?
do want to read The Curse of Shirley Johnson, and that just totally slipped past me. That is a Spawn universe book that Jonathan Glapion is the artist on that series. So I want to check that out. Also, I knew I was forgetting something for catching up, and it wasn't Red Coat that I originally wanted to dig into. It was the Invincible Universe Battle Beast issue. I
Oh,
picked up that first issue. Did you read it?
well, I haven't read it, but I got my because Newbury Comics, their comics were delayed last week.
Yeah.
So I went and I grabbed them today, but I had them put a blind bag aside for
Nice.
me. So I've got them
Nice.
upstairs. I haven't opened it yet. I meant to bring it down
You know
and I
what?
would open it
Might
on the
be good
program.
to do a pack break kind of style video for that. Might not be bad.
It'd be like 10 seconds, Nicholas. It's rip. What's one issue? I almost did on the program though. I meant to bring it down to rip it open on the program, but
You
I
know
was
what, Joe?
distracted.
There's a saying that people have about excuses, but I just cannot recall the rest of it because we are a family program. But either way,
They're
the
called
first,
Nicholas's.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What the hell was I gonna say? It was really freaking good. I
Mhm.
really enjoyed it. Like it was just, like I don't want to dig into. You haven't read it yet, so I don't want to dig into anything. But if you guys didn't pick that up, you're in the minority because a lot of people are reading the Battle Beast series. Definitely check that out if you haven't already. But anyways, moving on. Yeah, a couple books from Image that I wanted to discuss. First, I want to dig into the number one that I did read. This is written and drawn by Xander Cannon. Sleep issue 1, and this is an unsettling black and white small town story where the first issue is focused on establishing the dynamics of this small town. We're focusing on the main character, Jonathan, and some of his friends, some people that have been in town a long time, some people who have returning to town in some capacity. There's a few different dynamics that are at play in all of this, a few different characters who you like, and there's a couple characters who are like, yeah, okay, like they're a little suspect in some ways. And this all hovers around this horror mystery that we kind of jump right into at first, but then move away from a little bit, but is somewhere in the background in some capacity. And this like unknown monster is at the center of this horror mystery too. And there's like certain things that you're able to infer pretty quickly about that. So I had a lot of fun reading this first issue. This is an 8-issue story, so you and I talk about it all the time. I know like there's this sentiment across the industry about like ongoing titles, and like outside of the big two, you just don't have as much of that, and it's I think it just always is smaller for indie series. But you and I do really like having like concise stories where it's just like boom, like you just get 6 issues, 12 issues, whatever it is, you tell a story, boom, we move on to the next thing. I enjoy that. If you have more with the character, then yeah, we can go and venture into another story. But there's just something about like concise one idea and telling that story that you and I really appreciate.
Love that.
And then Joe, I didn't know, did you want to dig into Rogue Sun as well? Because I'm happy to keep going, but by all means.
Yeah, Rogue Sun issue 27. Again, like this current arc is absolutely fantastic. I love the I mean, I don't want to call them dueling Rogue Sons, but like, Dylan and Ari are just so they're oil and water. Um and I just like I don't know. There's just been something about that dynamic that we've got in the last two issues that I absolutely loved, and I think what I loved about this issue in particular is we got a great battle with Noxious, right? The villain who was a great little villain, but there's something about the books this week that have all had phenomenal endings,
Mm,
and the way that Ryan ended this particular issue, I just thought was so good because you've got Dylan trying to do the right thing, um, and he just unfortunately like does the wrong thing or doesn't do the right thing fast enough, sort of thing, right? So like, it's a real cliffhanger ending that I really loved. The artwork continues to be stellar, and like this arc in particular is just like it's one of my favorite out of the last few.
yeah, I want to dig into Noxious a little bit more because I think he's my favorite Rogue Sun villain, Joe. So
Mm.
we obviously had Caleb, who is absolutely the most dynamic Rogue Sun villain that we've had so far, and I understand like objectively he's probably the best because he just brought so much to the table and continues to do so. Hellbent had a really cool look. Obviously, the Blood Moons have a very cool look as well, but Noxious brings in that cool look. But I also think he's coming on my radar at like just the right time. He's got, for those who haven't seen him, he's got this toxic gas inspired look, and there's so much great detail into that appearance. I mean, Abel, just an outstanding, like he's an outstanding artist, but also his design work is top notch, and a big reason why Rogue Sun continues to be one of our favorite books in all of comics, not just Image. But this look is also inspired by the initial wrongs that were done to him and others by the very people that he's targeting. And he's just one of those characters like he feels like bad. He's like very like angry and aggressive and like I'm going after these people, no questions asked. But it's also like, is he that bad though? Like, is he wrong for thinking some of these things necessarily? Like, two wrongs don't make a right. But at the same time, like, do I get it? So he's got a cool look. It's in a lot of cool inspiration, really cool motivations. I would imagine that we're going to see that character beyond this arc. I'm very curious how Ryan utilizes him. I'm sure Rogue Sun will end up. I don't know. Maybe Rogue Sun won't end up beating him. Who the fuck knows? He loses all the time. So what am I saying? But yeah, some as always, Image Comics doing some awesome stuff. Let's see. Let's move over to. I'm going to take us through Dark Horse, Joe, and then boom. From Dark Horse, we're not breaking any books down from them necessarily this week, but we got Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures, issue 18. Vatican City, issue 2. Cyberpunk, issue 20. I'm sorry, Cyberpunk 2077, Psycho Squad, issue 4. Into the Unbeing, part 2, issue 4. From the World of Minor Threats, Welcome to Twilight, issue 3. The Great British Bump Off, Kill or Be Quilt, issue 2. You've Never Heard of Me, issue 4. Who Are the Power Pals, issue 3. Robo Wolf, issue 1. Ghostbusters Dead Man's Chest, issue 1. Did you check this out?
I did. It was fun.
Nice.
It was fun. This is a good book for if you've got kids that old enough that have watched the recent Ghostbusters movies, because this is just a continuation sort of that
Nice.
Ghostbusters. So it's like it's in that, I guess, that YA realm,
Mm.
but like fans of Ghostbusters in general. So it was just a fun book. This is one I would recommend if like you've got kids that like Ghostbusters and that you've let watch those movies. They can read this book.
Excellent. And then moving over to boom, we got Jim Henson Presents issue 4, and then a book, Joe, a number one for the second volume that we're getting from Boom, a book that you've kind of talked about, haven't done a full deep dive on the show. The Killer: Affairs of the State, Volume 2, Issue 1. How was it?
It was excellent. So I've got to go back and, like I said, there's a number of volumes of The Killer, because this is it's an international comic, and so they've adapted it to English. So um The Killer Affairs of the State Volume 1 I read, I love. So now this is sort of a continuation of that. What I'll say is that like the Killer Affairs of the State, knowing when I was reading it initially that it was a foreign comic based, that had been translated, like I gave it the pace that it needed. I understand that sometimes like European comics, they're written differently, their
Yeah.
pacing's different, right? It could be a little slower, a little more, a little harder to get into. So I let it breathe, and once it got cooking, I really, really enjoyed that. But Matz is the writer, and Luc Jacquemont is the artist. And what I'll tell you, what I loved about this first issue was it got sort of like right into it, right? But it's got more layers than the first volume of Affairs of the State had, where right, boom, you're introduced to your kill. I mean, your main assassin there, who's the same guy from the first volume. And what I loved about it was like there wasn't any of this like, oh, setting up who the target's going to be. And it was literally like, here's your assignment, you got to make it quick, go. And he's sort of living out in the wilderness. And as he is staking out and doing the prep for his job, he comes across like these human traffickers and these kids, and sort of the story just takes a U-turn that you don't expect. And so the action in this first issue really gets cranked up a notch, and moves, I think, at a little bit faster pace than what I recall the first issue of the last volume moving at. So there wasn't like a lot of like setting things up and planting the seeds. It was like, boom, let's kind of get right into it. So I enjoyed it very much. I love Joaquimon's art style. And Matt's, like I said, he just did a really good job of pulling you in and giving you a little bit more depth to the characters, because like I don't know if I don't think you had a chance to watch the movie, did you?
Not yet. No, I need to.
Right. So like the main character, he's an assassin. He's very good at what he does, but he's got to be emotionalist. He's got to be stoic. He's got to be right and thorough. And we get all that, but there's a little something, there's a little added wrinkle in this first issue that just gives the character just a little bit of depth and a little bit of warmth, if you will. So I absolutely love this book. I think when this one ends, what I'll do is I'll do a Killer Affairs of the State, you know,
Okay,
main
nice,
line, right?
nice.
And then that'll open up the universe so that if I'm dilly dallying and you want to go back and read some of the other books, you can do so with reckless abandon, Nicholas.
What a guy! What a guy you
Right.
are. Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. I'm glad that you're enjoying the start of this. I gotta. I see. This is the problem. Like, I wanna. You don't have to do this with comics. The beauty of like comics versus prose is I feel like I can go and watch a movie and then read the book after, and I can very much appreciate the different experiences. I know with everybody else, or with prose rather, it's a difficult thing for people to do. I've had it myself in the past, but I think with comics, because you have that art there, it really helps separate the two. So I might go watch the movie before I read the series.
Well, so this is what I'll say, Nicholas. You can watch the movie, and it won't have any. Well, at least on the Affairs of the State, I think it is, loosely based on some of those earlier books. But like the beautiful thing about this property is like you just have to be familiar with the main character, right? And knowing that he is a very um, sociopathic in the sense that like emotionless, stoic, can take on many roles, can be who he needs to be, right? And is good at what he does and gets the job done, right? So,
Mhm.
like off that, it's like James Bond. You could tell 1,000 different stories with just the premise of who the main
Mm.
character is, right? So you can go watch the movie. And I think I remember when watching it, I was on, doing research on it, and it's like, oh yeah, loosely based off one of the earlier stories, or maybe a combination of some of the earlier stories, of the killer, plot wise at least. But you can watch it, Nicholas. It won't have any bearing, at least on Affairs of the State. And I think you'd enjoy it very much. It's very easy to separate the two because
Nice.
it's more about like just who the main character is in general, and then you can from there tell any number of stories.
Perfect. I really appreciate that insight. That is extremely helpful. All right, I'm going to take us through these last few here, Joe, before we move over to Mad Cave. We got one book from there we want to discuss. From Oni, we got Epitaphs from the Abyss, issue 11. Out of Alcatraz issue 3, which you are reading. IDW, we got Star Trek Defiant issue 27 and Mothra Queen of the Monsters issue 3. From Titan, we got RuneScape Untold Tales of the God Wars issue 3, Conan the Barbarian Eastern Horizons issue 1. And then from Dynamite, we got Thundercats issue 16, The Terminator issue 7, Vampirella issue 2, Darkwing Duck issue 4, and Red Sonja Attacks Mars issue 3.
Not sure about. Oh wait, never mind. I just picked up Red Sonja, Army of Dark. I get so many Red Sonja titles, so that actually could be accurate.
And you're reading the Red Sonja Gail Simone book too.
Oh, you sure am, baby.
Yeah, you got a lot going on, Red Sonja, right now.
I'll tell you what. I am 24 books shy of 500. 500 is where I need to be by the end of June to stay on pace.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are cooking with gas. Continue cooking with gas, please, as you take us through Mad Cave.
From Mad Cave Studios, we have Spectrum issue 6, Blade Forger issue 3, Whatever Happened to the Crimson Justice issue 1. Yes, Nicholas.
If you're we're not going to break this book down, but if you're a Batman fan, you definitely want to check this out. This has serious influences of Batman there. And obviously we talked about like how with Absolute Batman, there's, a ton of freedom for Scott and Nick Dragata to kind of take stories in directions that they want. You get like, you're going to have even more freedom when you're talking about like an indie title where it's also just not Batman. So there's influences there. If you're looking for stuff that's like Batman, trying to scratch that itch, check out Whatever Happened to the Crimson Justice issue 1.
And speaking of Batman, we have Dark Empty Void issue 5, which has nothing to do with Batman. It's a book written by our friend Zach Kaplan that we absolutely love. And I gotta tell you, Nicholas, this final issue was something else. I mean, this book has been haunting. It has been emotional, and it has just been one of my favorite books. This was an excellent finale.
Yeah, and obviously Christian's art has been outstanding throughout the entirety of the series. We love Christian's work. He's done some amazing work from a lot of titles that we've talked about on the show, quite frankly. This is the final issue, and this ending, dude. I we get it, review copies from Mad Cave, but Zach made sure that we had it as well, and I made sure to send him a note after, and it's just like, this ending hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah,
I had no clue, and I love when we get an ending that comes completely out of nowhere, but then it's like it was there all along. Like I saw, like it totally makes sense. It's like that. There's just something special about about that, because it's like, now I can't wait to watch this again. I can't wait to experience this with having it in its entirety, like where it's just in plain fucking sight the entire time. And now I'm like, well, what the fuck am I going to do? Like I got to go back and watch this again. I have to read this again. So we get that with Dark Empty Void. Like, just, oh God, awesome stuff from Zach. His heater continues.
Yeah. It was, it hits you, right? It hits you like a sack of bricks. There's books that do that. I might be talking about one in just a moment here, and it's mostly from Jeff Lemire who does that. Whether it be Royal City, whether it be May's book, whether it be Dark Empty Void, whether it be Bliss, like there's a connection to a book that you have, to a story you have. It elicits something very special. And this book, it was very dark in the sense that you're talking about a feeling of emptiness, a feeling of loneliness, a feeling of not being good enough, right? So it touched on a lot of different things that we all may feel and experience. So Zach, amen, brother. You've entered a class of writers for me that really know how to kick my ass emotionally.
Yeah, like you said, that the darkness that's in this story, it's darkness in general, like in writing, you just can manifest in different ways. For me, I haven't experienced something like this. It was, it really was. And again, like Zach couldn't have explained his story more better when he said it was claustrophobic, and just that carried so much. And this is why we do the Friar Side chats. Like, we love getting those little details that enhance the experience. Right? We do what we do in general, just trying to enhance the comics reading experience. And when we get like a nugget like that from a writer or an artist, and then just along the way, like having that in my mind as I'm reading, it's just like, fuck, man, it's so present for me. And then to have it the way this ending, like where it kind of just, I don't even want to say what it does to me. Like I need to stop because I don't want to take anything away from what the reader's experience. We're so mindful of that. We just want to add to that. And if you've been enjoying this series for the first 4 issues, the fifth one's just you're not ready for the fifth one. You're not going to see it coming. And definitely something, I think this comes out in August in trade form. Definitely something, if you've been waiting on it, you're going to want to check out.
Should you ever decide to have children, Nicholas, the first thing I'm going to give you and your lovely wife, but mostly for you, is a copy of Jeff Lemire's Maze book, and then just watch you openly cry for hours.
I honestly, the fact that I haven't read that already is a sin, because I do want to read that before I have a kid. So I'm going to make a point of doing that so that I can go back and read it afterwards to see if it hits me differently. Which actually leads so well into, you're talking about books that hit you with like a ton of bricks. And Jeff Lemire, you got a Jeff Lemire book that you want to talk about from a publisher that I've never heard of this title. I don't know anything about this. So this is a great TLDR find.
Yeah, this is the epitome of TLDR. I came across this book just scrolling through Hoopla, and I think it was like, based on your reading, because that's how I read Royal City. And so the book I've chosen today is The Underwater Welder from Top Shelf Productions, which I believe is a Canadian comic book publisher, which would make sense because Jeff Lemire is Canadian.
Hey.
And he was finishing this book up while writing Sweet Tooth. There's a section of Sweet Tooth books that were written by Matt Kint, and the reason for that was so that Jeff could finish this story.
Oh,
so it was written and drawn by Jeff Lemire, which is so Jeff Lemire does 2 types of things really for me. He his horror, his Bone Orchard Mythos, which he does with Andrea Sorrentino. His horror books, where he's primarily the writer, is like one class of Jeff Lemire books, and then you've got the books where he's the writer and the artist. And that's books like, The Underwater Welder, Royal City, Maze book, right? He's got a very distinctive art style, which I think really adds just this sort of ghostly and haunting element to his storytelling. And the letters on this is Steve Wands. And Lemire's also got this like watercolory sort of style too, which I absolutely love. Synopsis. As an underwater welder on an oil rig off the coast of Nova Scotia, which is another reason why this book hit me so hard. Jack Joseph is used to the immense pressures of deep sea work. Nothing, however, could prepare him for the pressures of impending fatherhood. As Jack dives deeper and deeper, he seems to pull further and further away from his young wife and their unborn son. But then something happens deep on the ocean floor. Jack has a strange and mind-bending encounter that will change the course of his life forever. So this is a trade paperback. It's in 4 chapters. And when I first came across this book and I'm looking at the cover, I didn't read. That was the first time reading the synopsis. I thought I was getting one type of story. I thought I was going to get more of a sort of a horror suspense type of book. But what I got was just this unexpected, emotional onslaught, of a story. And in typical Lemire fashion, it is gut wrenching. But there's also warmth to it, right? Especially in the way that it ends. But that's, you don't get that bit of warmth until you've been slapped in the face, with just moment after moment after moment of just sort of, depressive, revelations. And so it's a story of family, of loss, forgiveness, loneliness, but more importantly, of letting go. Right, you can't move forward, right, until you've let go. Not to quote the great Coach Ditka, to live in the past. You live in the past, you die in the past. The past is for cowards, right?
Ditka.
Dick is just a step away from being a pope now, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
every time I hear Ditka, that just takes me back to
The best thing I saw was that Chicago got a Pope before they got a 4,000-yard passer.
Dude, I'm not even kidding. Like, I texted Trucko because someone did a mock-up of the Pope, like, as the one of the throwback White Sox logos,
Oh
and
yeah,
I texted him that, and he legitimately said that line to me right away, and
yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Yeah, man. Sorry."
yeah. So get back on track. It's Pope talk, TLDR. Right. It's about letting go, and our main character can't. He's lived his entire life not being able to let go. To you don't know what at first, right? It's just only referred to as, oh, it's Halloween, right? And there's something triggering about Halloween, which you find out later, is that his dad dies, and that is something that I can relate to. There's a certain time of the year that I get, I myself get emotionally withdrawn and distant, you know, for reasons. And so like that was something I could relate to. And there's something about Lemire's characters that I find I often relate to a lot. And I think that's why these books hit me, so hard. But his wife is like, she is ready to pop, right? But this guy is like, you can tell, like he's terrified. But he's married to his job, and he's like, listen, I got this one last job. It's gonna take me 2 weeks, and then like I'm all yours. And she's like pleading with him, like, no, you don't have to. We're gonna be fine. But he's like, no, I gotta do it. I gotta do it. It's like she knows who he is, so she lets him go. And so he goes out there, and then something happens to him where he becomes unconscious. They have to rescue him, and they say, you've got to stay home now, right? You're done. You're done with the rig. We'll go home, recover, be with your family, sort of thing. And so he's now home with his wife, but like Lemire does a really great job of like giving you the feeling like he's itchy. He can't do it. Like he decides he's gonna go visit his mother because something happens to him while he's down there. He sees this pocket watch, and it triggers something in him. And as the story goes on, you figure out the importance of the stopwatch and sort of the trauma that it's connected to. But like what Lemire does so well is that like he's telling you this very personal story, and like you want to know what the event was, that what happened on Halloween. You can kind of piece together that something happened, someone he lost someone. But like what's the importance of this pocket watch? It becomes the obsession. And as he obsesses about that, it tears apart his relationship with his wife, who's about to have their child. It tears apart his relationship with his mother, right? You learn to find out that his dad was a drunk, and it's like, and it's, it's one of those like sort of stereotypical like alcoholic father, makes promises, always going to be there, never shows up, never follows through, is unreliable, right? And he lets his son down one too many times. And so his dad is sort of like this deep sea junker, right? And his dreams of like, oh, we're gonna save up enough money, gonna go to Mexico, gonna find all these Spanish galleons, gonna hit it rich, right? Like again, that's the typical sort of drunk lament. There's always an answer at the bottom, of the bottle. There's always going to be that next big thing that finally gets them out, of this rut that they're in. And so one of these finds, he gets this pocket watch that he gives to his son, and his son in a fit of rage like throws it into the ocean. And so that comes back into play, right? So like Lemire is just telling you this haunting story of a son who lost his father, who he very much admired, but he also knew was never there for him. Um and 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 he's slowly becoming the man that you vow never to become.
Hmm.
And then in the process of trying to you know put all the pieces together, of his childhood trauma, of this watch, it's calling to him. He decides to make one last dive, and then this is where the story sort of takes almost like a Twilight Zone sort of twist. And it almost a little Charles Dickens like, where you have the ghost of Christmas past, sort of paying a visit, and this character is now looking at the world through the eyes and reliving the events of a child. And what trauma can do is trauma, right, can blind you to the facts. You repress things, you forget things, right? And as he's sort of reliving sort of these last days, you know, you find out what really happened on Halloween, right? What is the significance of this watch? Why is he so scared to become a father? It all just sort of comes together. And this is a beautiful case, a perfect case of four issues being just the right amount. Jeff Lemire tells this story in four issues that is beautifully paced, that is complete, and just has you feeling everything, like everything. Start you like you just get so engrossed. I read this in like no time, Nicholas. I flew right through it,
Hmm.
as I often do, with a lot of Lemire's works. And so it's this not being able to let go, and then realizing you have to, or else it's going to destroy everything else that really matters to you. And sort of acceptance, right? That's also a big part of letting go, is you have to accept what happened, what is, what no longer is, and then you can finally take those steps forward. So the story, the main character of the story really is Jack, but there's Susie, his wife. There's his father, who's a drunk, and he's really a tragic figure. You have the mother, who's only in there for a little bit, but like again, impactful, because she's trying to, help her son, like, again, move on, right? And like, as a parent, you never want to see your kids suffer, but also want to help them when they're too blind, to recognize the truth and reality. So it's very haunting. It's perfectly paced, right? And the art, like, there's no color. It's black and white. And the way, like I said, he uses watercolor, for a lot of the background stuff. Lemire's got a very sketchiness to his art, which I think really adds to the oppressive, emotional tone that this story takes on, and that it needs. So, like, to me, this is like quintessential Jeff Lemire. Like, there's the old sort of stereotypical thing, like, oh, wives like to watch Hallmark, movies, and have a good cry. Well, when I'm in that mood, I just need to read a Jeff Lemire book, right?
Hmm.
He's like my Hallmark, but so much better, so much better. But like, this was just a great story. Um, I don't know where you can find physical copies of it, but if you have Hoopla, I highly recommend it. Um, but look for it. Look for the Underwater Welder. This is a vastly underrated book that everyone should read.
It's amazing every time you find a Lemire book that you haven't read, just because you've read so much of his stuff. I mean, he's been around for a long time and done a lot of impressive work, but it's just always shocks me when you're like, I found another Lemire book to talk about on the show. I'm just like, what the fuck? Another one? How?
And there's still fish flies, and you snagged Minor Arcana.
Yep.
And that's
We're
not
gonna
even to
talk about
mention his superhero books, right? Which I admittedly have not read many of. I mean, he's got his own universe, Black Hammer universe, which I have read, but like,
get on the show.
I believe he's done, New 52 stuff, and obviously we talked about Absolute Flash. But like, this is the stuff. Like, I love his horror stuff, like, Gideon Falls.
So good.
Um, right? But like, this is the type of book, and I still have to talk about Royal City, on here. Essex County was another book that I talked about on here. Sweet Tooth, right? Like,
Yep.
he's
Have you
he's
read
my
his?
white whale,
Okay, sorry. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand that one.
which is probably good that it didn't happen then, because I don't know if I was ready, to be honest with you. I
Okay.
feel like with all the interviews that we've done since then, like, I'm much more equipped. I always get nervous when we talk to Scott Snyder, but like Jeff Lemire, um, I don't know, that feels on a different level to me, in terms of just like, I think what he means to me, and how he's affected me as a writer.
Yeah, I think it's because Chip's probably the closest thing for you besides that we've experienced. on the
Yeah,
show.
but talking to Chip too, that's he's a lot like Scott. Like, I don't know, they're very easy to talk to, right?
Mhm.
And their books, Scott's books, Chip's books, they mean a lot to me, but on a far different level,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? Like far, far different level. Like Chip's made me cry of happiness, right, right. But like it's I don't know. There's just something different there, you know.
I'm excited for the day that we finally have Lemire on the show because that's going to be a special day for you. It's going to be a special experience. I'm just going to be happy to bear witness to that. Quite honestly, yeah. I mean, it's just one story after another with him. You know, another one too is his Moon Knight run. I've talked about that one on
Mm.
here. That was that's some of my favorite stuff. Some of the trippiest Moon Knight shit we've ever seen. But moving over to the book that I want to discuss this week, the Underwater Welder sounds friggin' outstanding, and I'm talking about the Wicked and the Divine this week. Now, obviously, this is a book that just had its 10-year anniversary, pretty much a year before you were recording this episode. This was Kieran Gillen and Jamie McElvey, colors by Matt Wilson, letters by Clayton Coles. And the reason why now is the right time for us to talk about it on the show, as much as we could have done it on the 10-year anniversary, the Power Fantasy, Kieran Gillen's latest Image comic series, which was a Floppy Award winner on my behalf this past year. Art by Casper Wingard, just was nominated for an Eisner, as The Wicked and the Divine was also nominated for an Eisner when that was an ongoing title as well. Similar in like small ways, but very different in many others. Like the biggest similarity is an ensemble cast, but this is a little bit larger, and we're dealing with much different issues in this one. Wicked and Divine was 45 issues plus 4 like prequel one-shot issues, a Christmas annual, and then there was the Wicked and the Divine, the Funnies, which is also a one-shot. And then there was 9 volumes of this thing. This thing is massive, but seriously, once you get in the flow of this, you're just gonna blow right through this fucking thing. It is just there's so much going on. It's so well done. This ran from June of 2014, so we're coming up on that 11-year anniversary from when it first began, or I guess 12-year anniversary, whatever. Math is not our fucking job on this show. June 2014 to September of 2019. So a long, long run for an indie comics title, described as like dark contemporary fantasy, very, very apropos. And I know Kieran, when we talked to him about the Power Fantasy, he made a point, or it was either when he talked to us, or maybe I was reading in like one of his letters after the issue, of like how he wanted to make sure that people knew the Power Fantasy wasn't just another Britpop a story that he did, but like the Wicked and the Divine, which is very much that. This is all available on Hoopla. I mean, I recommend, if you want to just check out the first volume, check it out there, and then pick up the other ones. You're going to want to read the entire thing. I think it's also available in a full singular collected form, which, quite honestly, Joe, I don't know. Have you ever read out of like a compendium or an omnibus? I never have. I can't imagine doing that.
Yes, I have Usagi
Wow.
Yojimbo.
Oh, okay. Am I wrong though that it's such a different experience reading that
Oh,
friggin'
it's
massive book?
daunting. You shouldn't have to use a bookmark for comic
Yeah,
books,
yeah.
right?
I couldn't do that, man. I just no way. It's just for me. It just feels like so clunky and whatever. Anyways, I don't understand. Like, I know we always ask this question to each other. I mean, you were talking about a 4-issue story with the Underwater Welder. I mean, obviously, to me, that's a movie if it's going to be anything. I don't know how The Wicked and the Divine isn't already a show. I don't know if it's been optioned or anything like that, but 45 issues, there's going to be a lot in there. You have like 12 to maybe 14 characters, something like that, to flesh out over this series. There's somebody for everyone, and I'll get into that too. But the synopsis, and this is actually on the back of, I think, every trade. Every 90 years, 12 gods incarnate as humans. They are loved, they are hated. In 2 years, they are dead. It's happening now. It's happening again. I mean, quite honestly, that's one of the best synopses we've ever read on the show. I think there's so many things that are going to hook you right in. And it's just also, it feels very much like Kieran wrote that too. Like the final 2 lines, it's happening now, it's happening again, very much feel like him. Now, before I start digging into characters and the other components of this series, I actually do kind of want to throw like a a disclaimer or warning, but just a note for people. I'm gonna make some major omissions when I talk about this title. Now, Joe and I do that in general in terms of talking about books because we're trying to not spoil things and whatnot. But I want to say now, like, it's more than usual because, um, like, there's some things that just pop up throughout the course of the story that are just like you can't there's so much different, so much shit that changes from volume to volume. So you may hear me talk about some stuff and feel like, wait a minute, Nick said what? Like, and then when I'm reading this, like he said this, and then so it may feel like there's even misdirection on my end, just because I want our listeners, Joe, I want you to have the best reading experience possible. So just understand that going in, like I'm telling you some shit that happened that I know early on. A lot of the fucking shit changes throughout the course of the story. So our main character that we have is Laura. She is your POV in this story. She is a super fan of these gods who are also pop stars that she somehow finds a way to get tangled up in all of their drama. And there's a lot of fucking drama. And getting involved in that kind of stuff can always seem appealing to people. But once you're in it, it sure fucking changes. Then we have Cassandra, and she is this pain in the ass journalist. And I say that being like a former, journalist, like I think I know people like there's don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people in the media that are annoying and problematic and all this stuff. Don't get me wrong, but I think when done the right way, journalists is such an important job. I was always in sports, so I'm not like gonna go pretend like I was fucking changing the world. But with this character too, she's in entertainment stuff, but at the same time, these characters are gods, so like there is a level of importance to what she does. But man, she has never settled with the fucking answer that she gets at any time. Like she always thinks there's more to what she's being told by an individual. I'll give her this. There are a lot of times that she's right, but her assumptions about what else there is are not always right, which I find appealing. But she's definitely one of the smarter characters in this story. Then we have Ananki, who I don't know if they ever officially use this term to describe her, but I feel like it's the best way to label her. She is the keeper of the gods. Like she helps them like kind of get sorted out, get set up, and identifies them, all this different shit. So that's her like her role in all of this. And she does a lot. She has like a important relationship with the gods. As for the gods, now I don't think all 12 always surface. I don't think at least some of them do, if not the majority of them, but Ananki has to go and find them throughout the course of their reemergence, resurfacing. So we have Lucifer, who, as you might imagine, is a troublemaker. Now, another thing that's important, so like Lucifer generally is portrayed as a male character. This Lucifer is a female character. All of these different gods can manifest in a woman or in a man. It does not matter. It is not limited to that at all. Then we have the name that even as I read it, I can't pronounce it correctly. Amaterasu, which actually, if you guys are watching the stream and you see the cover that I'm using for that Joe set up for me for my background, or if you see in the audio version the part of the cover that Joe had picked out, that is Amaterasu. She's like this free spirit type guy, like very like kind of feels like, I know Joe doesn't like when we talk about hippies, but it feels like she has like that kind of hippie, like free loving vibe.
She looks like she's in her David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust era.
Okay, there you go. Okay, that's fair. Then we have Ball. He is the leader sort of type figure and also a god. All these characters I'm going to mention here are gods. He is very forceful. He used to be involved with Inanna, who is another god that I'll get to in a bit. We have Sekhmet, who basically, again, God, basically thinks she's a cat. Very much unhinged. And a lot of these characters are very flawed, but there are two that are unhinged more so than the others, just like in the general sense, like forgetting how the plot like evolves or devolves throughout the course of the story. The other one who I would describe as unhinged is the Morrigan, who is like this underground goth girl. She is one of my favorite characters, and I actually she's my favorite of the gods. And I'll get into that a little bit more. She is also lovers with Baphomet, who is another god in this story. He is again like a underworld kind of punky goth guy. But I will note that what's really significant about them being lovers is they were lovers before they were identified as gods. So all these gods, like they have like Lucifer's like real life name is Eleanor Rigby, like or human name. That's what her parents named her. Yes, of course. And these are all British characters, exactly, right? So that's her name as she would like. That's what her parents named her. They didn't know she was a god. All of this shit, and then she's identified as Lucifer later, and she goes by Lucifer. So to have the Morrigan and Baphomet both be like identified as gods is like a big deal. In the course of the story, even though they already knew each other beforehand. Then we have Minerva, who is the youngest god of the bunch. All of these gods are probably they may have mentioned it specifically in this, but I feel like they're anywhere from like 17 to like 25, somewhere in that range, except for Minerva. I feel like she's like 13 or something like that. So, but ironically, she's like the god of wisdom in all of this too. So, and all these names are like, god names that you've seen in other, in various like religions and sects and whatnot. We have Woden, and there are two words I would use to describe him: tech and dick. He is the worst of all these characters. He is a total asshole, and you guys like from page one, totally sucks. Then we got Dionysus, who is like this free flowing rave partier dude, like the most chill, like have a good time character of them all. Probably only like in probably second to him is Anana, who I mentioned before. Who was previously lovers with Ball. He is probably the best person in Anna. And he like in terms of like appearance and whatnot, he looks he kind of looks like Prince. Quite honestly, like when you see the character, like if you go through the covers, like you'll see his cover, and you won't even need to know reading the stories. Like just see the cover and you'll know it's him.
Dionysus, Greek god of wine, revelry, and theater.
See, there you go, perfect,
Chill dude,
exactly.
chill dude.
Yes, sir. And then we got Tara to round things out. She's very nice. Very much feels out of place in her godhood. So yeah, we got a lot of those. We got all those characters all fleshed out in various forms, all taking on significant role in some capacity. And what's from a conceptual standpoint, this is all about focusing on or examining like the experience of young musicians, and there's a lot more to that without like getting into like again, I don't want to get into spoilery stuff, but these are all pop musicians, and that's not, these gods have not manifested in that way like every time over the years, but in this instance where you're dealing with like figures that like we know they die in 2 years, it's like it's gonna happen. Like with pop musicians, like they we have some that will last for years and years on end, but there are plenty others who they have, they're like shooting stars or whatever the fuck it is. Like they shine really bright for a quick period of time, and then we never hear from them again.
Like
Well,
the one hit wonders that were Blink 182.
That is a deep cut for all DSG listeners. Oh God. But so much excitement, so much demand for these characters, these individuals, so much drama and such dire consequences. And what's so awesome is like as much as that going in, you have that understanding, and it does get fleshed out. You get lost in the story, and you can lose sight of the fact of like of what the message is, what this is dissecting, and like the rapid rise and fall of young pop musicians. But it's always present. Like if you like you take a second to remind yourself of that. But like Kieran and Jamie, like they, as much as you get lost in the drama and the details of what's going on in the story as opposed to like the message, they bring it all together marvelously. So it was a great concept. And again, there's more that's being talked about in this, but I don't want to say what that is because you just need to read it and experience it in its entirety. As for like I mentioned, all the gods, like we have these 12 gods. The Morrigan was largely my favorite from the 12, but like that said, like she's got serious issues. We find out a lot of stuff about her. Like she's got this ability to take on like two different forms. Besides the Morrigan, I forget. I'm blanking on like it's like Bath is like one of the names, and I forget what the third name is, but they're just like odd names. I there's it's interesting how she can be such a magnetic character as much as she's like she can also be very aloof. And then like within her own like relationships that she has with people, she's very problematic. So like all of them have issues. All these characters have issues, and that's part of the beauty of it. And honestly, like all these characters, when you as you get to know them, while I'm not necessarily saying I can go and point to like as much I said like Anana is like Prince, and you brought up how like Amaterasu kind of has like her David Bowie vibe to her. With all these characters, I'm not saying I can go and point to each one and be like, you remind me of this pop star, and you remind me of that pop star. You read this and it's like these all have like a vibe to pop stars that we've seen in lifetime. There's a familiarity that's there with each and every one of them. And then again, the POV character in all of this is this girl Laura, who we meet up right off of the rip, and she is a very smart young girl. I think she's like 18 or 20, somewhere in that range. She's very smart, but she's also maddening as hell at times because again, she's like living a normal life. I get it. You want to like deal with the fame. You want like there's a level of like I wish I was one of the gods. Like so I want to be part of it all. You're drawn to it. Everybody in this world is drawn to these individuals. But it's like, dude, like sometimes you gotta take a step back. And her character arc is we talk a lot about like good character writing and in I think this series there's Kieran developed so many awesome characters and the plot and the message and there's so many strengths that are displayed in this series by Kieran, which is why it was Eisner nominated. I can't believe it didn't win an Eisner. But I think how Laura's character arc is written because it's not even remotely a simple character arc is one of the best that I've seen in all of the comics that I've ever read. It's just it feels like you have this like developing thing and then things change. And then you have this other developing thing and then things change. And it's just you never know with this girl. And I love her. I thought she was outstanding. And by the end of it all, it's just chef's kiss. This character is top notch. And then again, like yeah, I can't get into like the core of the story. I can't. Like it's that like I've talked about already in some capacity, and you guys will get it when you get to the end. Like this is one of those series where again we talked about it with Dark Empty Void, where you go back and you read it, and then it's like fuck, you get to the end, it's like God, this was what it was all about. And then in this too, it's right there in front of you the whole time, and then until you get to the end, it's like oh man, that's what this was about this whole fucking time. Really? Like, I mean, and it's Kieran. What do you expect? He's one of like our favorite artists that we talk about, writers that we talk about in all of comics. As for the art, I mean, Jamie McKelvey is one of the cleanest comic book artists in the business. It's not even. It's he is so polished, and you put that with Wilson's color. Like this has such an amazing modern pop vibe. There's one issue, Joe, that's like a magazine where, and I don't think it's Jamie that necessarily did the art in that one, but Kieran did like a series of interviews with each of these characters, and I'm just like Kieran's got a journalist background as well, so like I get how he'd think of something like this, but it's also like this fits so well with what you're doing. It's so fucking smart. I was really impressed by that. And then the character design. Everybody has a vibe in some capacity, and there's with respect to spoilers again, I will say that that with respect to spoilers, the Morrigan and Amaterasu have my favorite. Their designs are my absolute favorites. You guys will know what with some of these things you'll know when you get there. I just I got to be careful, but I love the Morrigan. She's very much my vibe. Again, she's flawed. I understand that. I need to acknowledge that because she does some stuff that's very much not cool. But yeah, The Wicked and the Divine, 45 issues. And again, it's available on Hoopla. Check out that first volume and then dig into it, Joe. Once you give this a look, you are gonna binge the hell out of this.
I feel like I need hardcover copies of this Power Fantasy when it's all said and done, and um,
Once the
uh,
future
no, no,
or
no,
die.
uh, die, right?
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean. Like, once the future would be great too, but
Mhm.
like, because there's something beautiful about Stephanie Hans's art, and there's always something incredibly gorgeous about Christian Wingard's art. And I haven't seen the art on this yet, but the way you describe it, I'm sure it's absolutely stunning. So like I feel like those would be like three like hardcover books to have in your collection, put on display, and show off to people.
Oh, most definitely. This is absolutely something that you have to own. It's a shame that we haven't talked about this on the show sooner, but it's very fitting to talk about it right now. The timing absolutely worked out for us. All right, so that is going to do it for us this week. I think right now, as it stands, we are supposed to have another mainline episode coming up, but because of some things that may or may not be in the hopper, Joe and I are going to move up the solicit for the month of June to the final week of May. Usually we try and start off the month with our solicits, but we're going to kick that up a week. Can't say why. We're just going to leave it at that. So, my friend, until next week,
keep reading, baby. Bang, bang. Yeah.